Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Monday, May 19th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I'm currently in a hotel in LA for Games Beat Summit. That starts today and through tomorrow. I'll be doing an accessibility panel, so that's why I'm here. But I have hotel coffee as well. It's not bad. It's a Keurig machine, so Keurig ain't too bad. But the creamer, yeah, less to be desired. But I wanted to at least one of the reasons why actually I was in LA too was, and I'll do a recap of this probably on maybe Twitch or on YouTube. I don't know if you're interested. Let me know in the comments. I got to go to the last night of Universal FanFest nights, which had a bunch of different experiences from different franchises. They had from Jujutsu Kaisen, or I know I butchered that. I hope anyway. I think you know what I mean. They have One Piece. They also have Back to the Future. They did have Harry Potter, and then Super Nintendo World. But also the things that I was interested in was Dungeons and Dragons and Star Trek. Did I get to sit in the captain's chair? If you looked at my socials, you probably would tell that I didn't get to sit in the captain's chair, but I did get to sit in a captain's chair. And yeah, and I also got to stand behind Tactical on the Enterprise D bridge. I'm telling y'all, that was a childhood dream come true. Like being on that bridge that was recreated for Star Trek Picard Season 3, probably one of my favorite seasons of Star Trek ever. If you've not seen Picard Season 3, it is the send off to the Next Generation crew that the original, for the original, like the Undiscovered Country movie was for the original series. It is way better than I would have ever imagined, and they recreated the Enterprise D bridge specifically for that show, and that was the same bridge that they used for Universal FanFest nights. And I'll tell you all about it later, but I got tons of videos, ton of photos, and I had an absolute blast. And also the Dungeons and Dragons experience was actually, I'll even say this, better than the Star Trek one. I know that's hard for me to say. That is very hard for me to say, but actually it was better than the Star Trek one. Just saying. As far as experiences go, immersive experiences go. All right, let's talk about the news today because there was kind of something that came up yesterday that I wanted to do a video on because it's something I've already seen and kind of known about, but I haven't really seen out in the wild, as it were. And that's in regards to the Nintendo Switch 2 and some of its accessibility features. Now, we've talked about before of there's a video on my channel where I kind of got to see an overview of the accessibility that is going to be on the Switch 2 when they announced it, when they talked about it during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Well, they didn't talk about accessibility, but during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, they did have an accessibility page that went up that talked about speech to text and text to speech. We didn't know how that was going to be played out because they had two different things. They had that feature, plus also they talked about kind of voice chat or basically where you can be able to communicate with friends. This is where you can get the Switch 2 camera or any other sort of webcam, like USB-C webcam that works, and you can be able to basically communicate together, kind of almost like jump into a Discord call or a video call, and you can be able to play Switch games together or the same game together. But this story kind of popped up yesterday, and it's from VGC, and it's written by Jordan Midler. Nintendo confirms Switch 2 will include much requested accessibility feature. The Nintendo Switch 2 will support text-to-speech, which we've talked about before. The feature, which has been shown off in a new gameplay clip of the Nintendo Switch 2's GameChat feature, shows players typing messages into the system, which are then read by the system itself. While currently unconfirmed, the original Nintendo Switch system supported USB keyboards, so it's likely Nintendo Switch 2 will also support the accessory. Nintendo Switch 2 also will support live captions, meaning that a chat box on the side of the screen during game chat sessions will transcribe what other players say into the Nintendo Switch 2 systems, adding a further layer of accessibility. So this is from I'm assuming a Twitter video, so we're just going to play that real quick. Hopefully my hotel Wi-Fi will kick in. That's fine. Here we go. Need the audio because yeah. So it looks like you can be able to use obviously the built-in keyboard that is in the Switch 2, which is not bad. Like this is obviously in I want to say I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't want to say what language it is, but obviously not in English. But it allows you to be able to type to your friends, which interesting. So actually, I want to hear if it does type messages.
どれにする
Okay, so it does also. Yeah, it does replay that in a voice. So let's go back and oh no, I don't want to see an ad for TD. Thank you very much. And let's see the pop-up feature too, or the pop-up like chat feature. So apparently it will this will do. So this is how it looks like the interface will be for text to speech / live captions essentially, or speech to text, because it'll have this is a new interface we have not seen before. So there's a little side pop out of the chat, which if works well could do pretty well for Switch 2 users that with like who are deaf and hard of hearing, or even just folks who just prefer to be able to have speech to text or text to speech instead of having to be able to type in a keyboard. Which I mean, having a keyboard basically allow you to be able to connect to the Switch or Switch 2 definitely would be useful for something like this. So if it was never officially confirmed that, as it says in the article, that the original Switch does have keyboard support, but it looks like that at least, hopefully, that the new Switch 2 does. Otherwise, it looks like it just use the built-in keyboard. My thoughts on this: I think that this is great. Obviously, being able to see this in action is great. I don't even think that necessarily seeing this or hearing this in English would sort of change my thoughts on it. I would say it'd be interesting to kind of like see what kind of voices that will be available. How is it a synthetic? Is it synthetic AI voice, or is it just a robotic TTS voice? Because there is a difference, and the thing is with kind of with different AI or different TTS voices, oftentimes if it's AI focused, it usually has to be server, like not all the time, but it generally would be server based, and also it's trying to be able to mimic human speech instead of this reading the synthetic words of that's why you hear like a robotic voice whenever you like a true robotic voice whenever you hear folks like blind users use like a text to speech or like basically a screen reader type system, because it basically they can be read at fast speeds, super fast speeds, and they wouldn't degrade. Whereas like with AI, it kind of just mumbles everything together. So that's a fun fact if you didn't know that. It's kind of, there's a lot more nuance to that, and I don't want to get into the specifics like too much with it, but essentially that's kind of how it works. So it'd be interesting to see if Nintendo is going the more accurate TTS voice or a AI type voice. It sounds like, just kind of hearing. Let me just hear this again, just to kind of like kind of get a good sense of it. So let's listen to this. I don't know if you can be able to hear it.
どれにする
Okay, so it does kind of sound.
どれにする
I don't know. It's hard to tell. It does sound a little bit synthetic, but then it also can sound. It sounds a little bit like AI. So, be curious to see if it's going to be kind of more which is which. I'd have to kind of hear it in English in order to be able to kind of know the sort of nuances of that. So yeah, I think this is going to be great. I think this is going to be awesome for accessibility purposes. I think a lot of folks are going to get a really good use out of this. Whether or not GameChat will be the thing for Switch 2 users, that they would want to be able to jump into a GameChat call essentially, and to be able to play with disabled friends. So we'll see. This could be one of those Nintendo features that just gets announced, they put a lot of effort into it, and barely gets used. So there is a fear of that. Anyway, speaking of Switch 2 news, there is also by Chris Scullion over at VTC, 37 minutes of Switch 2 Cyberpunk 2077 footage has been posted online. The footage, which can be seen embedded above, is a compilation of B-roll footage distributed by CD Projekt Red. The clips show various aspects of the game in action on Switch 2, including driving through the city, combat with enemies, and various cutscenes. Early hands-on reports with a preview build of the game at Switch 2 preview events suggested that there were some performance issues that were affecting the frame rate, which had to be addressed before it was ready for release. This new round of footage appears to suggest that many of these reported issues have been ironed out, with gameplay generally running at a steady 30 frames per second. So I'm going to play the video of this, but I'm going to mute the. I'm going to be able to talk about it because I don't know if it's going to play. Would like to send you notifications. No, don't allow. I do not want to get notifications from. Here we go. So let's do that. All right. So we're looking at the base of the footage. Oh no, I can't click to exit full screen. All right. So we're gonna basically have to do it this way. I will say this, like kind of watching the footage, this is actually very similar to my experience. I haven't done a video on my experience playing Cyberpunk 2077 because this is like one of those that just unfortunately got away from me. I do have footage of me playing it, and also there is the accessibility settings from the Ultimate Edition on this. This was the only game that was at the Switch 2 experience that actually had proper, like I was able to see the accessibility settings. Now, I didn't really report on it really as much because this isn't this isn't new news essentially because it is the same accessibility settings as that is in the Ultimate Edition of Cyberpunk 2077 at like right now. But it does look like that they are going to be moving all of that over to the Switch 2 in its Ultimate Edition. As far as the performance goes, I did get a little bit. It still looks gorgeous. You can tell that it's not as high quality as you can see it, or that you can be able to tell on its PC counterparts. And there was times in the gunplay that I did kind of notice maybe like a frame drop or two. It was kind of weird to be able to see because I was playing it on TV. I couldn't play it docked or undocked, so and it seemed fine, and I didn't really notice that much that it was playing in 30 FPS. Actually, no, sorry, I did notice it was definitely running in 30 FPS, but I didn't think that that was a bad thing. The fact that it's able to run at all on the Switch 2 the entire game and still look good and still play well, I think that that's just a victory in and of itself. Because you gotta remember, like back in 2020, barely even the PS4 or the Xbox One versions of this game barely ran. So the fact that they were able to take that and actually be able to make it work on the Switch 2, love that. And if you remember hearing about the rumors of that CD Projekt Red, it took them 7 weeks to be able to put together a build of this for the Switch 2. That's not true. Just as a heads up, that rumor is false. The build that was at the Switch 2 experience, at least in New York, was 7 weeks, like 7 weeks old. So yes, in essence, that it was like it's just a 7 week old build. There's been many builds since then. It did not take them 7 weeks to be able to put it together. It just meant that what was submitted to Switch 2 experience, that was an older, like basically almost a 2 month version. They've updated that since then. I think even technically for the Switch 2 experience in Toronto, I would imagine they probably had a different version than what was in New York. So, I mean, just looking at the footage here, like it does look great. It does, like regardless of the yeah, you could tell, yeah, it's not like super high end, and it can look like it definitely you can tell when it's not like in 60 FPS or above. But I think it works. I think it will serve its purpose. And again, the fact it's again playing it on a Switch 2 is huge. So I don't have any like captured footage of this, only just from kind of playing off camera, or the camera was set up like just pointing at the TV essentially. But so looks like it's directly captured from the game, and yeah, you can tell there's like a bit of like blurriness, especially in this kind of scene where you're driving through Night City. It definitely has a little bit of a yeah, like it's not super high end, super crisp, but it works. It's playable, and I think, and it still looks good as what they can, and that's fine. That's all you can. That's all literally you can really ask for. So, anyway, that is going to be it for my for this episode today. Hope that's okay. Hope it's okay. It's a little bit shorter. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any comments or have any questions about accessibility on the Switch 2 or about Cyberpunk 2077 on the Switch 2, please let me know in the comments down below. Take care. Have a great day. And I'll try to see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, I can stop recording now.